Today I'd like to conclude our discussion of Chapter 4 of the book Undoing the Knots and get into Chapter 5 of that book. Chapter 4 was really covering the period of the post-Civil War up to 1900. Maureen O'Connell, the author, makes a very interesting observation at the end of Chapter 4. She says that the movement that we need must be from racial reconciliation to racial reconstruction. So racial reconciliation, of course, is bringing the two races together, getting them to dialogue with one another, listen to one another, help one another, whatever way they can. And reconciliation, of course, is needed because harm has been done. Certainly, we've seen a pattern here of how the black people post-Civil War were exploited in Philadelphia. They were discriminated against. They were not given equal job opportunities. Their rents were higher. Their housing was substandard. Whole list of things that were inequitable, obviously, were done to the black workers. And so certainly reconciliation is needed. But if we stop at reconciliation, Maureen is saying we lose something. What we need is racial reconstruction. We need to take a look at how we created these systems and look at alternative systems that we need to put in place that are certainly a lot fairer than what has happened. And it is the active steps of healing of the psychological and social wounds caused by racial injustice. So we've seen the racial injustice in this time period. Obviously, there was racial injustice way before this from the very beginning. But of course, after the Civil War, you think, oh, this is good now, things are going to change. Obviously, they did not change. They changed somewhat, but very incrementally. And the systems of oppression that were in place before the Civil War changed slightly, but certainly greatly remained in place and restricted the opportunities that black people had. Interesting, the healing she talks about. Certainly, they've got to be active steps. So it can't just be like, we'll wait and see what happens. We'll take it slow. We'll be patient. Maybe things will change in 100 or 200 years. No, there must be some active steps that must be taken. And the active steps are for healing. And it's healing on two levels, psychological wounds and social wounds. A lot of times we don't even think of these types of wounds, right? The psychological wounds that are caused to a people by discrimination, by injustice. We just say, oh, you better get over it. Times have changed. Things are better now than they were, prior to the Civil War. Black people are freer now. Things are better. But we don't deal with those psychological wounds that were caused. And also then the social wounds. What in the social fabric is hurting the advancement of the races? And so looking at those things, Maureen says, are very important. So we keep that in mind as we move into Chapter 5, which is entitled Maneuvering, and the parish is St. Stephen's Parish. Interesting, the founding parishioner of that parish was a slave holder. So right from the very beginning, you have that orientation. The person was a slaveholder. She uses the example of the baptism of Christina, who was not treated properly. Her baptism was kind of, neglected and, outside of the regular course of things. It was almost an embarrassment that this black person wanted to be baptized. Certainly was not welcomed with open arms and in a loving way. And that was part of the pattern. There was a sense of white people being uncomfortable with black people. Also, at this time, you're dealing with the KKK. So the KKK arises, we're talking about the end of the 19th century into the beginning of the 20th century. The KKK is blossoming, not only in the South, but also in the North, all over. And the basic thesis of the KKK is that black people are inferior to white people and must be kept in their place. Cardinal Doherty is the cardinal at this time, And Cardinal Doherty, well known for his real estate investments, he had a great helper, a real estate advisor named Albert Greenfield. And Albert was very close with the Cardinal, very helpful in helping the Cardinal acquire a tremendous amount of property and at a reasonable price. And so the parishes expand, the diocese expands, many institutions are built. It's a time of uh, great improvement in terms of the status of Catholics in Philadelphia. And so to kind of show this, there was a sesquicentennial celebration in 1926 in Philadelphia. And the Cardinal kind of wanted to overpower the KKK with his demonstration. So we got this huge demonstration. They had a big mass. There were actually two masses, one inside the stadium, one outside. 250,000 Catholics participated, but unfortunately, the black Catholics were not given a prominent role in the celebration. And black Catholics complained, but uh, their sentiments were never really dealt with and addressed in a proper way. There was a great patriotism theme at the celebration, but black Catholics were certainly not treated in a respectful way. And so many people look at this and they say, well, certainly that was true. White Catholics were featured more prominently in the celebration and other activities throughout the diocese. But the answer to racism, when it deals with this, is niceness. We have to be nice to one another. Well, certainly niceness, being nice is important. It's kind of a basic requisite, but will niceness solve these problems of racial imbalance? No. I mean, these are significant problems of employment, of housing, of education, economic opportunities. Uh, and so just to be nice to people is not going to solve those particular problems. Certainly we should be nice to people. Marina's not saying not to be nice to people, but to think that that is the solution, we don't have a handle on the extent of the problem. We just think this is a minor issue, and so if we're nice to people, it will be fine. But as Maureen points out, we need really active steps that are going to help to solve these underlying problems. And so we have to really reflect more, what can we do as a society to promote equal opportunity for everyone and to make sure that no one is discriminated against and that people have a reasonable avenue, a good path to achieve success in their lives and that they are not discriminated against.